Hey, Cyberspace Nathan Wallace coming at you from the home office. This is the second video as far as industry news. Today is August 24th, 2018. And if you hadn't had a chance to watch the other video as far as industry news, I kind of like to divide things up into three different categories. So we have general, power systems, cybersecurity, and conferences. So general, these are just different things that stood out to me during the week. Power system, cybersecurity, news items that really focus on cybersecurity, securing the grid. And then we have conferences. So this is recent conferences as well as future conferences. And I guess we have a guest appearance. It's Dorothy back there, cat. So she's probably going to be making a lot of noises here in a little bit. So Hurricane Lane, it's actually going towards the islands. I think it's still a Cat 3. Yeah, so this is it's a utility dive article just talking about some of the different, things as far as what the utility is doing. So let's see. Yep, she's being noisy. Let's see. So already 30 inches of rain. I think that it's projected to get up to 40. Things kind of starting to break up and slow down. Yeah, look at this. I mean, it's almost a 90-degree left turn here. Bam, and then. But still, I think they always say the right side, kind of has the major force, right, as far as winds. So still nothing to play with, right? Still nothing to play with. So I'm going to be curious as far as kind of tracking this. Hawaiian generates nearly 70% of its electricity with petroleum. Let's see. I actually have another article. Yeah, so let's jump over to the Energy Information Administration. So I didn't know this. This is a cool resource as far as looking at. You can go to this website to see, okay, what are the energy resources as far as fuel? What's the percentages? So kind of looking at this. This actually shows petroleum product supply movement and infrastructure in Hawaii. So the different islands where it's all sourced. So cool, really cool, resource if you're into this stuff. So there's the total number of megawatt hours as far as generation. So this is from January 2014 to May 2018. So it still looks like, petroleum, is the top energy source. And then all the way down there, let's see, solar, wind, coal. So coal ranks second, but look at the difference there. I honestly thought solar would be a little bit more. Let's see. So definitely we'll keep an eye on that, and I'm going to be curious to see, kind of how the restoration efforts go there. And then the other thing I wanted to pull up, which is a really cool resource, and it's free. If you go over to HECO's website, we have an emergency preparedness handbook. So you can actually go in here, download it. Looks like there's different versions of it. So that's impressive. But I guess given that it's the island, so you can do it, view it in the browser, or you can download it via the PDF. So a lot of good information here as far as electrical safety, food planning, and of course all the local resources there as far as disaster management, disaster relief. So if this is something you're involved with, I strongly believe taking a look at this. Any type of disaster management, even if you're not in Hawaii, there's a lot of good tips in here. Even a little section on PV, how to safely handle it. Whenever you have this type of outage and you have PV, you actually have to have proper signage, because whenever they're doing the restoration, let's say they're on your feeder circuit going, house to house. If you're generating power, it's a safety issue, right, for the different linemen. That could be interfacing there with your meter and your system at your home, or even your commercial building. Let's see what's next. UK Northern PowerGrid 19 million smart substation project. So here in the U.S., it honestly seems like we're behind with regards to implementing different technologies. Let's bring this over some more. So this is a ELP, Electric Light and Power article. Northern PowerGrid, UK-based distribution operator. 19 million smart substation projects. So there's not too much information as far as this article. Let's see. They kind of explain what an RTU is at a very high level. Let's see what else. Here's a quote. This is a significant and technologically challenging operation drawing on many of our highly specialist technical functions across the business. The advantage at the end of this work will be infrastructure that will enable us to operate our network in a more flexible way, to deliver more value to our customers through smarter, more efficient, cost-effective services. Dorothy's in the way over here. Come on. What you doing, kitty? Got a little thing she's playing with over here. Let's see. But part of the upgrades was basically to support some of the renewables, some of the electric vehicles, so that bi-directional flow of power, which I talked about in an earlier video, the infrastructure has to support that. So this is just my guess, as far as the different technologies, so they're probably implementing a lot of substation automation, distribution automation, as well as some stuff like the IEC 61850 protocol. So sadly, the U.S., we're honestly, with regards to implementing these technologies, we're behind. We're behind, in being able to support, or at least creating an infrastructure that supports these renewables, that supports electric vehicles. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, hopefully we can follow up on that as well. So this other article here, there was a judge that ruled. So there's a lot of people that are focused on privacy as far as smart meters. They record your power basically in real time, or they can record it and basically send that information out, on some pre-programmed interval. So every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you can basically set it. Well, this was a ruling that the Fourth Amendment, let's turn this guy off. There we go. There you go. See if we can exit it. There we go. So smart meter data, whether or not it's protected by the Fourth Amendment, appeals of court ruled last week that it is protected. And the government's access to this data thus constitutes a search, the court held. So this gets interesting because, a utility company, if it's, let's say, an IOU, an investor-owned utility, when they're doing this net metering, for billing purposes, it's not just for billing. They're not just collecting the information just to send you a bill at the end of the month. They're also collecting it to say, okay, what's the condition of their grid? They want to know if you lose power, that way they can dispatch crews. So there is honestly a reliability a component to these smart meters. It's just not for spying, but that's a utility company or an IOU, an independent company. Now this gets different when, let's say, the government, your local government, a municipality, who runs the utility infrastructure, the electric utility infrastructure there, for a town or a city. And whenever they now are collecting metering data, at this little 15-minute interval, there are arguments against that because it is a privacy issue. They can say, okay, well, what type of appliances are you using? I mean, this is a stretch, but it's researchers are exploring how you can do that. But by natively, the meter's not going to do that. The meter's not going to send a report back up to the utility at the municipality, the billing office, to say, oh, they just turned on their dryer, or they just turned on their water heater. That's not how these meters work. But this is an interesting ruling because basically it's saying the metering data is protected. So you can check out this article. This one's actually on CNET. I think the Electronic Frontier Foundation was one of the ones that basically were involved with this. So it's interesting. Feel free to comment below if you like a link to the actual ruling. I have it somewhere. Let's see, what else? So all those fires that were going on in California, let me see if I can pull up the article here. Some of it was being caused by the the utility. So let's say, a piece of equipment it catches on fire, and then all of a sudden the fire spreads and starts, forest fires. It just spreads, damage houses. I mean, a lot of liability, potential liability. Same thing with the power line. So a tree comes over, hits the power line. The power line isn't de-energized. The relays don't kick in quick enough. Let's say power line hits the ground while it's still energizing, and that sucker's just doing all this, right? Because it's energized and it's moving and it's sparking. So if that creates a fire and it spreads, whose fault is it? What was the issue? Same thing if a car hits the power line, runs into the power pole falls, sparking, and then fire starts. So the governor there in California actually had proposed a law to shield electric utilities from some of the financial liability with regards to these wildfires when they're sourced from the utilities equipment. This is a really interesting debate. I mean, I know someone needs to take ownership of these issues, but once again, it goes back to investing. You have to have, if you're going to have the infrastructure to be able to detect, to protect against this type of stuff, you have to have intelligence. You have to have a smart system. There's technologies that basically say, if you have the like some traveling wave technology, if you have a fault, the power line breaks, and then one of the lines hits the ground, there's computers basically on each end of the power line that says, okay, has it broke? And before that line hits the ground, to basically turn off power. So can you turn off power before that broken line hits the ground to prevent any sparking and any fires that would occur as a result of it, being on the ground? But this is more computers. This is more intelligence now that we have to install to do that. So you can make this argument and say, okay, well, what about the rate case and all this other stuff? So, it is an interesting debate, and I guess this is where the utility commissioners come in to try to make sense of all this stuff. So yeah, they basically tabled that for now. Let's see. Dominion files first plan under Grid Transformation and Security Act. Let's bring that up. So we talk about building more resiliency into the system, into the grid. So this was a request, I guess, really for credit. So the law included provisions for $200 million in bill credits to customers and $125 million in annual rate cuts due to tax relief. Modernizing the energy grid to improve reliability, resiliency, and the ability to integrate more renewables. So overall, the Grid Transformation and Security Act, I think this is really just for, Virginia, which became effective in July to make the state's grid smarter, stronger, and greener over the next 10 years. Dominion wants to add 3,000 megawatts of new solar and wind capacity, enough to power 750,000 homes by 2022. That's cool. I didn't know that. The utility ranks 6th in the solar adoption across the U.S. The energy provider will invest $450 million to improve its services through access to real-time grid and customer energy usage data from smart meters, by installing 2.1 million units during the first 3 years of the program. So once again, here we go, smart meters. It's a smart grid, it's not just the smart meters, it's much more, but, as far as customer interaction, real-time awareness as far as the houses, your load, residential and commercial, the smart meters help facilitate that. So that's cool. Let's keep on cruising. So power system cybersecurity. So the NRC is looking at updating some of their standards. So this is a utility dive article. Let's come over here. So updating NRC cybersecurity guidelines highlights printers, copies, and hackers and entry points. This is something we honestly already knew. So if you're not familiar with the industry, we have basically NERC which is the bulk electric system, and then we have the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is focused on nuclear power. And I teach a class, me and a couple other people. Like I said, we're going to teach it again at Distributech in January. But basically, you have your electronic security perimeter, and then you have the devices that are inside there. So your let's say your EMS, your energy management system. If we're talking about the ESP for a control center. And then you have, the computers, the HMI screens, the human-machine interfaces screens. And then, of course, you need stuff like the printers, copiers, what else? Just all kind of stuff, phone, right? Your phone, your VoIP, voice over IP. And the provisions in the NERC standards state that the rating, as far as the criticality, the security rating, that's required for your HMI, so you can imagine how, yes, you have to secure that. That makes sense because it's, an operator screen. Someone can go in there and push buttons. And then what the NERC provision has is saying, okay, if a printer is on the same network, that means that the same protection that you would implement or the same rating that you would classify the HMI, you would also classify for the printer or for the phone. So as long as it's in the same ESP, as long as it's on the same network, it has that same security classification as far as how much security you need to implement, how much you need to protect it. You're not going to go plug in USB into a printer, to print some stuff when you wouldn't necessarily do that for the operator's computer, because of the security protections. If it's a shared LAN, local area network or network. So that's, that is cool that they're updating that standard, or at least taking a look at it. I think there's some drafting stuff open for comments, basically, that's going on right now. So this is, there was a lot of speculation as far as who this really applied to, this fine. So this was I think it was announced back in February, March timeframe, saying that NERC had issued the largest fine to date. Let me see if I can pull up NERC's website. So it was the largest fine to date. So here we go. We got some enforcement actions. Keep on cruising all the way down. Where'd it go? Okay, so yeah, this was in WEC as far as the region. So let me scroll back up to the top just so you can see the column labels here. So date, regulatory authority, regulatory filing ID, region, registered entity, total penalty, it keeps on going. So, nothing too crazy, well, I say crazy, but for the utilities, we have 100K, 200K, 180K, and these are just different violations as far as what they violated. So here you can see the SIP stuff. Here you can see the facilities standard. Just keep on cruising. Look at this. 2/28, so January, February, so February 28. This is in the WEC region. Unregistered entity, URE, so they didn't want to publish the name of the asset owner at the time. $2.7 million. So I think this is the largest fine ever levied against a utility. And it's SIP 003. And it was basically some medium impact information. So let's go ahead and click on the view filing. So just going to open that in a new tab. I need to bring this down. So this is an 11-page document that basically goes over kind of what happened. And it was a contractor, as far as, my interpretation. Someone basically just took 30,000 asset records, so drawings, IP, communication drawings, schematics, and had them on a public or a misconfigured, unsecure file server, and it was publicly available. Anyone could just go to this website, this file sharing service, and I think it was some default credentials, logged in, and bam. And it was basically a white hat hacker that had discovered this. So critical cyber assets, so CCAs. Let's see. The information associated was up for 70 days. Like I said, it was a WEC entity, or it was in the region. So anyways, there was a Wall Street Journal article that came out that that believed that it was PG&E. So they basically are pointing the finger at PG&E. I mean, this is still speculation, but honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who it was. It really shows, though, some of the security challenges as far as supply chain, keeping that information secure, and you have to trust, who your contractors are. If it's an individual that you're contracting with, or if it's a company, you have to make sure that they are really, a security conscious individual or a security conscious firm. Just so stuff like this doesn't happen. Let's see, what else? So this is a article. So moving on, we have Canadians seek inclusion on cybersecurity meetings. So this makes sense. People say, we talk about the PowerGrid. It really is a connected grid. There's ways to disconnect and connect, to isolate it. But, Canada is part of our grid. If you look at the Northeast blackout, how it went up and over and back down, we do have a connected grid. But interestingly, some of those stakeholders, they're not involved with the meetings that we have, at least, the intelligence community, cybersecurity type meetings as far as attacking critical infrastructure. They're not represented. They're not at the table, which it doesn't matter. It's a connected grid. They should be, right? I mean, if they're the stakeholders, they're involved. Events that are targeting their system, if it could have a direct impact on our infrastructure, right? So this gets into the politics of it, versus the physical grid. So this just once again stresses the importance as far as making sure we understand the grid itself, that we understand the technology, itself, and of course you can't be naive to the politics of it, but at least the people that are making these political decisions need to understand the actual grid, need to understand the actual system. Let's see. Keep on cruising. Let me exit this guy out. This was and we get back into as far as, let's bring this up. So this was a testimony from Moss, Mr. Moss here, basically statement of record. Deputy Director, Threat Intelligence Integration Center, cyber threats to our nation's infrastructure. So DNI.gov, so you can go right here, Director of National Intelligence, and he's basically talking about critical infrastructure, the different attacks as far as nation states, the uptick and rise for these types of attacks. So we talk about critical infrastructure. It's more than just, the power grid, more than just utilities. It's also even voting, I think, now. So you can imagine that's at the top of this. So you can see it right here. Let's see. Yep, sorry about that. You may notice a slight break in the video. I had to let the cat out and kept making all kind of noises. So I didn't want that mucking up the video here. So let's see. So as I was saying, voting, that's part of the critical infrastructure now. But he does talk about as far as, threats to the actual, electric utilities. Just mentioned some work as far as stuff they're doing. The Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center. What else? I mean, some of this, and I guess this is really, coming at from my perspective, as someone that's been working with the utilities for several years now, this information as far as threat intelligence, it needs to be actionable. It needs to be actionable within a short period of time. Otherwise, it's useless. It's pointless. From the standpoint of the utility. Yes, I understand. When you look at threat intelligence information as far as who were the actors who did it, that's great. For politicians, law enforcement agencies to actually go after these individuals and even companies or governments. But when you look at the benefit to the actual utility, if the information is not actionable to them, there's no value. There's no value in it because they can't do anything with it. And I mean, this is especially true if you look at the assets in their system. If they can't easily configure, change, alter, block even based on the threat information, there's no value. There's no value in it. Like I said, from the standpoint of the utility, or at least giving the information to the utility or asset owners. So more just stuff talking about different things that they have observed over the recent months and years. Which government is likely to pose a significant threat. So if this is stuff you're into, definitely it's interesting to kind of read about this statement. Let's see, keep on cruising. Here is a NIST, a new draft that they're working on as far as a special publication, kind of advising on how to securely implement cloud-based technologies. So trusted cloud, VMware hybrid cloud, infrastructure as a service environments. So like I said, this is a special publication that's going out for drafting. Let's see. Recently released a preliminary draft. So let's go ahead and open this guy up. A new tab. So NIST SP 1819A, Trusted Cloud, Security Practice Guide for VMware Hybrid Cloud Infrastructure as a Service. And then this is important, if we look at virtualization, the increased adoption of virtualization, not just for, operational use in electric utilities, but also just file storage. So you look at services like, offered by Microsoft, as far as things like SharePoint, and different other solutions out there, and whether or not the asset owners and utilities are using that, right? So a lot of that is some cloud service, just for file storage, file hosting, chatting, chat back and forth even. Some of the utilities organizations are using that to help streamline some of their internal business processes. So what information is being stored there? What information is being hosted there? And like I said, a lot of cases that is the cloud. Even if it's a Microsoft cloud, a Google cloud, an Amazon cloud, it's still the cloud. It's still a server somewhere in some data center. Odds are getting duplicated and replicated and, sent to other data centers, even, domestically or foreign in other countries. So this SP kind of goes into talking about, here we go, the different challenges, different solutions, benefits, but things like Spectre and Meltdown, the two side channel vulnerabilities, I think kind of put this topic as far as virtualization and the cloud really at the forefront as far as the, what we need to focus on. There are a number of applications, all the way from just business management of electric utilities, all the way to full automation and control from the cloud. So these are things we need to look at. These are things we need to consider as we move towards engineering these technologies into not only the business, but also into actual operations. Let's see. Just keep on cruising. I spent some time on the last video going over, recent conferences. So like I said, there was the Alabama Defense Conference. You can check back on the other video to look at that. I pulled up the program. Black Hat, there was a talk that, I still love to get my hands on. I haven't seen it yet. That talk about, some of the industrial stuff, specifically industrial gateways, the vulnerabilities associated with that. And, I had a few statements as far as saying, the vendors for the electric utilities, their industrial gateways are honestly action-packed with security It just has to be engineered. It has to be enabled. It has to be turned on. It has to be integrated. And for the most part, we're not doing that. So it's not necessarily that specifically, for electric utilities, it's not that these vendors' devices, the gateways that we're using, don't have security. It's just that we're not enabling it. We're not engineering it. So that was, one comment there as far as the talk that was given at Black Hat. Future conferences, EnergySec is coming up. It's actually this coming week, so I wanted to bring that up and we can talk about it real quick. EnergySec, so this is cool. I actually attended it last year, not able to attend it this year. Somewhat more focused once again on compliance, not necessarily the nitty gritty of the grid edge. Let's see. There's the agenda right there, staring in front of me, huh? So Disneyland, who doesn't want to go to Disneyland? So day one, this is a pretty cool lineup. This is pretty good. I gotta hand it to these guys. So security leadership. Like I said, this is day one. So just kind of skimming it. Building cybersecurity engineering team for IT and OT environments. This is really one challenge. We're taking all this IT type stuff, web servers, file servers, shoving them inside of a protective relay, shoving them inside of an RTU. So now you have to have this engineer who can talk multi-languages, or at least have a team that has a multidisciplinary background. So this looks like someone from Excel Energy, so that's pretty cool. Let's see. So here's some compliance stuff. This is a good one. Bridging the gap between industry and academia. I'm going to probably have a whole video dedicated to that in the future. Workforce, definitely agree. We need to do more of that. Here's some threat hunting stuff. It seems like this is huge lately as far as, getting threat information to the operations center. And even trying to share it amongst the different stakeholders. Let's see, ICS forensics. So if there is an event, kind of how do you go in and analyze it? A lot of these devices, especially in the utility, you have to have the vendor specific software. You have to understand the system before you can go in there and do a forensics analysis. And then this is really where it gets interesting. People try to apply ICS forensics across all the different domains, all the different technologies, and you can't just do that. Let's see, keep on cruising. Cryptojacking malware and SCADA, so there was some stuff that happened last year where some cryptocurrency found its way into a SCADA system, and they were like, it's a SCADA cryptojacking, data mining. And SCADA networks are the last thing you want to do that on. A, because they're not really powerful, and B, you're not going to get the bang for your buck. So I think when this first came out, they some journalists were like, it's a new type of cryptojacking, a new type of crypto mining, that specifically targets SCADA systems. I'm like, well, the people who created that then aren't really smart, if that's what they're targeting, to try to mine Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency. Let's see, just keep on cruising. Some threat intel type stuff. So here we go, whole thing dedicated to compliance. Here we go, good old cloud. So that goes back to my previous discussion. Security architecture. So some stuff. We have a couple vendors here. So this is Schweitzer, software-defined networking. So that's a great technology as far as enabling software, redundancy, failover, isolation, segmentation. So that's a cool. I definitely, if you're attending, I'll definitely be sure to check out that talk. So day 2, digital utility transformation. We see this all the time. That's happening. Let's see, keep on cruising. It's a competition, I think, for students. Let's see. Easing NERC compliance with automated asset inventory for substations. I know these guys really well. I think some of this is actually may be a result of a paper that I wrote with Brian, actually from IEEE T&D. So if you like a copy of that paper, feel free to reach out. Let's see, cyber resiliency for ICS environments, physical and cyber resiliency on the energy grid. So we talk about resiliency. I'm curious as far as this talk, but basically, to achieve resiliency, to achieve redundancy, it has to be engineered. I keep saying that, but it's not going to come from the compliance. It's not going to come from some regulatory. You have to build it in. You have to bake it in. And like I said, maybe some more on that in the future. So with drones, what is the talk about the grid now without drones? Keep on cruising. Day 3. Complexity in a complex world. What every utility needs to know about cyber. So we have Emerson, so power and water talk. Here we go with some more cloud stuff. Security Operations Center, so some real-time security monitoring. That's cool. Diamond offshore drilling. Some co-op. So it is a mixture, right? It is a mixture as far as compliance and actual, security Operations Center type stuff. Good list of sponsors. I know several of these guys, several of these companies. So if you're looking for a trip to Disneyland, it's next week. So yeah, sadly, I'm not gonna be able to make it. Wish I could. Texas Cyber Summit, like I said, submitted to talk for that. IEEE PES, I can maybe go into that during another video. The ICS Joint Working Group meeting. Let me see if I can pull up their website real quick. And depending on when it is. So this is August 28th, which, these conferences are, there's a conference on this stuff every month, it seems. So I make a joke sometimes. I was like, how is anyone expected to get any work done if all they do is attend these conferences? So this is another thing, and it's sponsored by the ICS CERT, so Industrial Control Systems Cyber Emergency Response Team. They talk about just general control systems. But then, there are a few talks that go into the specific domains as far as the different type of control system environments. So let's check out this agenda real quick. So 3 pages. Overall, this it's looking like a pretty good agenda. They have, different breakout sessions. They have a main stage. A lot of these names are familiar. A lot of these names are standing out. Let's see. Here we go again. This word resiliency, right? Building it in. What else? Keep on cruising. ICS down. It's go time. Let's see here. Battelle. I'm just kind of generally going through this, just skimming it real quick. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Other reasons why security leaders fail at ICS security. And that's going to be an interesting, lively debate. Let's see. Software component transparency, passive monitoring versus active scanning, firmware analysis. So a lot of good people, a lot of good speakers, it looks like, at least represented from the different companies, firms across the board. But like I said, in a lot of cases, this is almost general industrial control systems, not specific to any one domain. Let's see, keep on cruising. Grid SecCon, let's see when that one is. I think that one's in October. So that one's actually sponsored by NERC. So maybe I'll do a review about that in the future. And then, like I mentioned, Distributech, a little star here. Like I said, there was a 8-hour course that I'm teaching alongside, honestly, who I view as industry experts. So we're bringing that back. That was accepted. And then I submitted a talk, like I said, to Texas Cyber Summit on some solar stuff, and also submitted a talk to Dell over at S4. So looking forward to hearing back on that. So yeah, this is it. Industry news. August 24th, 2018. Have any questions, comments? Feel free to comment below or reach out. There's my email there. You can also hit me up on Twitter. All right, so thanks. I hope y'all have a good weekend.